Do not underestimate her intelligence and her ability to manipulate you and your emotions. Hi, Yvette. I'm Dr. Karen. Thank you so much for writing in, and I really feel for what you guys are going through. With what you're describing with Lily, the fact that she's being aggressive towards family members and is resource guarding, but is otherwise really friendly with strangers and is really well behaved, great out on walks, all these sorts of things, it tells me that what we've got going on is a pack problem. You mentioned that you have had dogs of this breed before, and so it's not like you are inexperienced with living with a big dog like the Hungarian Vizsla, but you also mentioned that another of Lily's litter mates has had some similar issues. So not only have we got some problems going on with the family dynamics, but there may be a genetic component going on here as well. And that's something that can have a big impact. Now, the main reason that a dog is going to behave aggressively towards her family is because there has been some uncertainty with regards to who is in charge. We do know that pack dynamics are a lot more complex than a simple linear dominance hierarchy, but we do know that within a wolf pack, each individual tends to take on a certain role, and there's even a belief that these roles are genetically predetermined so that the dogs are born with a sense of what role they're going to play in the pack or in the family. So perhaps in the past you may have had dogs that were much more easygoing, whilst Lily is perhaps genetically predisposed to wanting a leadership role. Now, if there's no clear leadership role within your family, then Lily may be trying to assume that position. And any time that she's met with any resistance or bad behavior from those she considers below her in a hierarchy, then she's going to act out exactly the same way as she would if she was in a dog pack. And of course, in a family situation, this is completely unacceptable. And with a bigger dog, this can very soon turn very dangerous, and this could have a really sad outcome if we're not really careful and really strict here. Now, the absolute worst thing we could do is to start challenging her actively, trying to discipline her forcefully, because that's really going to bring things to a head and force confrontation, conflict, and even more aggression. But what you need to be doing is being consistent and clear about the fact that she is not in charge. And that's going to mean setting some really strict and firm boundaries that everybody in the house is going to need to follow all of the time. There cannot be any weakness. There cannot be any, oh, just this once. We need to be really firm here, and you're going to need to employ different rules than what you have perhaps in the past. When it comes to things like dogs on furniture and dogs in beds, my belief has always been, if it's not a problem, it's not a problem. That's not the case with what you've got going on with Lily, and she needs to firmly understand that she is not on an equal footing with you guys. So right away, we need to get her out of the bed, off furniture, and if you've got a 2-story house, it may even be worth limiting her to the lowest story. She's going to fight you on this. She's going to try and cheat it. She's going to try and inch her way back to have the status that she had before, and you must be strong. I want you to think about the fact that every time you give in to her, you are putting her under stress, you are confusing her, and you are putting her closer and closer to being put to sleep for aggressive behavior. This is really serious. She is confused, she is frustrated, and she's acting out. She cannot be allowed to have part of a sofa. She cannot be allowed to be sometimes allowed on the bed, or sometimes allowed upstairs, or sometimes eat food from your plates, anything like that. She needs to be fed last. She needs to wait to be fed. And this needs to happen each and every time. Consistency is so important here. And even though she will likely fight back on this initially, once she is being shown that she is not in a position of leadership, I can promise you she's going to feel a lot happier and a lot less stressed. Right now for her, life is really stressful because life in a leadership role within a pack is stressful. You're constantly having to think ahead, think about everyone else, and keep an eye on what's going on. And you need to be dealing out discipline. Dogs are actually a lot less stressed and a lot happier when somebody else takes on that role, because they don't have to be constantly thinking about everything. You may need to think about using tools like a muzzle and keeping a slip lead on her at all times so that you can safely move her off furniture or away from situations when you need to, because the last thing we want is for her to act aggressively and get her way, because that's only going to reinforce that behavior. When it comes to resource guarding, that can be really tricky because, again, you don't want to risk getting bitten. So I would suggest that we don't do this all at once. We can tackle the resource guarding at a later date once we've got into a more consistent routine with her understanding that she is in fact a canine member of your family, not the leader of your pack. Things you can implement that are subtle but effective in canine language is making sure you walk through a door before she does, you eat before she does, and she only receives rewards, treats, attention, affection once she is quiet and coming to you calmly. Now, I know you've heard me use the word consistent quite a few times here, and that's certainly no accident. Consistency is the number one thing, and that's why it's really, really important that everybody in your family be on board with this. As soon as somebody gives in, you're starting from scratch. Look, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. If you don't get good control over this situation, then things can really turn dangerous and you may be facing a really horrible decision down the track. So that's why it's really important that everybody be on board. What I would suggest is to take advantage of the fact that Lily's going to have been using a crate or some sort of a cage in her recovery from her cruciate injury, and I would look to keep that going at least in the short term, but perhaps even in the long term as well. Dogs feel a lot more settled when they've got their own space, their own room, their own territory that is just theirs. And rather than her feeling like the entire house is her property to guard, she may feel a lot more settled once she's just got a small territory that's hers. That's where she can be sleeping. That's where she goes when everyone's just chilling out. And that's somewhere that she can go if she's feeling stressed or tired or just wants to get away from it all. She needs to be off furniture at all times. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a forever thing, and you may find that down the track, once things have settled down, that you may be able to have her up on the couch and things like that, because I know that that's what I love doing with my dogs as well. But for now, if you invite her up, you're inviting confusion for her, you're inviting trouble for you. I don't want you to be mean to Lily, but there's a good chance you're going to feel mean. And that means you're doing a good job. You need to be really firm here, because whilst you could be at risk of injury, her life is in peril here. And if we don't get control of this situation, I'm really scared that she's going to be put to sleep because she becomes dangerous. Do not underestimate her intelligence and her ability to manipulate you and your emotions. Don't feel like you're in this alone, and always do reach out to your vet. Look out for any animal behaviorists or trainers, or if you'd like to talk to a vet online, you can go to pangovet.com and make an online appointment to speak to a vet there. So I really wish you guys luck. Remember, it's all about being consistent, being firm, and making sure that she understands you are the leaders. She does not need to fill that job. Good luck. Got your own burning question? Go to askavet.dogster.com. You ask it, we'll answer it. Or to speak to a vet one-on-one, go to pangovet.com to make an appointment for an online consultation.